Presuppositional apologetics has been on my mind a lot lately. I had a few thoughts on the presuppositional argument that I wanted to share with you, but I'm not going to do a comprehensive refutation of it because I feel like there are enough of those already, and really there's not very much beyond what I'm going to say in this video that I could add to it. So if you want to see a more comprehensive refutation of the presuppositional argument, I would point you to Alex Botten's Fundamentally Flawed podcast from last year. He had a series of exchanges with Bruggencate. I think it was last year. It might have been a little longer than that. But he had a series of exchanges on his podcast with Bruggencate, and Alex does a great job there of dissecting and just tearing down the presuppositional argument. And also, Brahe and Greaves, they do a pair of shows for the New Covenant group. Greg's is called Inspiring Honesty, and Bob's is called The Unconventional Pastor. And they have a sort of back-to-back show, like a 2-hour show that you can find here on YouTube, where they interview and debate Eric Hovind, who is presenting the presuppositional argument. And that is also a really, really great, smart, subtle engagement and takedown of that argument. So both of those, I think, would be great if you want a comprehensive takedown of the presuppositional argument. And also, KnownNoMore on that YouTube channel, there's a 3-part video response to the presuppositional argument. All of those, I think, come highly recommended for me if you want to have a point-by-point, in-depth response to presuppositionalism. But as far as what I want to say, I have two things that just strike me, and I've actually debated Bruggencate, as a lot of you know, on the Bible Thumping Wingnut show. I've had to face the presuppositional argument and the presuppositional attitude in person, and drawing on that experience and just reading and learning more about the argument in the last few months. There are two thoughts that come to me. I almost held up 3 fingers. Why did I do that? There are two thoughts that come to me about the presuppositional argument that strike me as sufficient to dismiss it on a personal level. They won't be very persuasive to the presuppositionalist, but then again, probably nothing would be very persuasive to the presuppositionalist. The presuppositional argument essentially is that God is a necessary condition for the comprehensibility of reality. And when you start at that point, it's very difficult to be argued out of that. If you've allowed yourself that privilege of occupying that position where your belief in God can't possibly be wrong, because if it were wrong, then reality wouldn't be comprehensible, it's very hard to argue you out of that. So this is more not so much to be directed at a presuppositionalist to try and dissuade him or her from that position, but more just a validation for myself and for others who reject that argument of reasons why that is a really, really bad argument, if for whatever reason you need to articulate that. The first thing I want to point out is that the claim that all people have innate knowledge of God, which is something that presuppositionalists assert, can be immediately refuted from a personal level, from a personal perspective. All I need to refute that claim for myself is the awareness that I lack that knowledge. It's really not persuasive when you tell another person that you know what they know better than they know what they know. The presuppositionalist will tell you that all people have innate knowledge of God, and that people who are atheists are denying that knowledge and are acting against it, but they know deep down that God really does exist because it has been revealed to them in such a way as to give them a certainty that God exists, and as it has been revealed to everybody. And all you need to deny that is just to think, oh, do I know that? No, I don't know that. Done. The second thing is that the entire presuppositional argument is essentially a dodge to avoid having to demonstrate its underlying premise. And this, even more so than the first point, is why I just cannot respect it as an argument. I mean, the first point tells me that it's false, or that at least a very important component of it is false. When you tell me that I know something that I know I don't know, That's really the end of that. But the argument itself is trying to get away with validating an empirical claim without offering any empirical evidence. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you claim that God exists, that God is a part of reality, and specifically a theistic God and a Christian God, as Eric Hovind and Sy and most presuppositionalists that you would be familiar with are Christians. They're arguing for the biblical worldview as the truth, using this presuppositional argument. If you're arguing for that God, that is an empirical claim. That God is not just an ethereal spirit who sort of exists, in the spaces between the spaces. He is taking an active role in reality. He is a part of reality. So you're making an empirical claim. You're making the claim that a God really exists, that he is here, that he makes things happen, he causes events to happen in this universe, in this reality. But you're not offering any empirical evidence to back it up. In fact, the presuppositionalist will say that he doesn't need to offer any empirical evidence for his claims. That in fact, to present empirical evidence for others to judge would be a form of blasphemy in a way, because it would be placing humans above God and allowing us to judge whether God exists or not. And we shouldn't do that. God is the one who judges us. We don't judge God. And that whole thing, that whole convoluted contraption is just a dodge. It's just a way of avoiding having to empirically demonstrate your empirical claim. And for that reason, it just will never be persuasive to me. And no matter how tightly constructed, no matter how skillfully deployed the presuppositionalist argument is, it cannot get around the fact that if God does really exist, as presuppositionalists say he does, and he is as they say he is, we should see evidence of his existence, and we don't. If we allow ourselves to accept this empirical claim without any empirical evidence to back it up, then we are opening ourselves up to believing anything. If you are willing to believe that God exists on the basis of a cunning, logical sounding argument, philosophical argument, then you are basically saying you're willing to believe anything. You have to be skeptical. You have to insist on evidence for a claim before you accept it. To do anything else is unreasonable and irresponsible. And that is what the presuppositionalist argument is asking you to do, to accept an empirical claim on the basis of no empirical evidence.